You know what nobody tells you about winter blackouts? It's not the cold that gets seniors. It's the first 48 hours when everything they depend on stops working all at once. The heating shuts off. The medical equipment goes dark. The phone dies. And suddenly, a 70-year-old who's been independent their whole life is in a life-threatening situation in their own home. I learned this during the Texas freeze in February 2021. My mom was 68 at the time, living alone in Dallas. Power went out on a Monday morning. She called me around noon, said it was getting cold but she'd be fine. By Tuesday afternoon, I couldn't reach her. Drove 6 hours through ice and snow to get there. Found her sitting in her kitchen wearing every piece of clothing she owned, wrapped in blankets, shivering so hard she could barely hold a cup of water. And here's what hit me. She had food. She had water. She even had a generator in the garage that we'd bought her 2 years earlier, but she couldn't start it. The pull cord was too hard for her arthritis. The instructions were complicated. And by the time things got bad, she was too cold and confused to figure it out. Let's start with number 1. Number 1, battery-powered heating pad. A rechargeable heating pad with a power bank, not an electric one that plugs into the wall, not those chemical hand warmers that last 45 minutes. I'm talking about a quote, proper USB-powered heating pad that you can charge before the power goes out and use for hours when you need it most. Here's why this matters more than anything else for seniors. When you're over 60, your body doesn't regulate temperature like it used to. Your circulation isn't as good. You're probably on medications that affect how you feel cold. And hypothermia can set in way faster than people realize. I've seen studies showing that seniors can develop dangerous hypothermia in temperatures that would just make younger people uncomfortable. But here's the thing about staying warm during a blackout. You can pile on 5 blankets and still be freezing because your core body temperature is dropping. What you need is directed heat on your core, your chest, your back, your major organs. That's what a heating pad does that blankets can't. My mom now has 3 of these. One for her lower back, one that she can put on her chest, and one backup that stays charged. Each one connects to a 20,000 milliamp power bank, the kind you can buy at Walmart for about $30. On a full charge, one power bank will run a heating pad on medium heat for about 8 to 10 hours. That's a full night of sleep without freezing. I bought her the Comfy Temp brand heating pads from Amazon. They're about $45 each. The key is getting ones with 3 temperature settings and an auto shut-off timer, because if you're older and you fall asleep with it on high, you could burn yourself. The medium setting is perfect. Warm enough to keep your core temperature up, safe enough to use overnight. And here's what I learned the hard way. You need to test these before an emergency. Number 2. Hand crank emergency radio. A hand crank emergency radio with a flashlight and phone charging port. And I'm very specific about this. It needs to crank by hand, not require batteries, and it needs to charge a cell phone even if it's just slowly. When the power's out, information becomes critical. You need to know when it's coming back on. You need to know if warming centers are opening. You need to know if there's an evacuation order. And most importantly, if you're a senior living alone, other people need to be able to reach you. The problem with seniors and blackouts is isolation. When I couldn't reach my mom during the freeze, it was because her phone had died and she had no way to charge it. She didn't know if I was trying to reach her. She didn't know if help was coming. She didn't know what was happening in the rest of the city. That psychological isolation, combined with the physical stress of being cold, is what pushes people into making bad decisions. The hand crank radio solves multiple problems at once. First, it's information. Most of these radios get AM, FM, and NOAA weather alerts. Second, it's light. When it gets dark at 5 in the afternoon and you're sitting alone in a cold house, having a reliable light source matters for your mental state, not just for seeing. Third, it charges your phone. Not fast, maybe 10% per hour of cranking, but it's enough to send a text message saying you're okay. I got my mom the Eaton hand crank radio, cost about $50. It's bright red so she can find it easily. The crank is large enough that even with arthritis she can turn it. And I tested it. About 2 minutes of cranking gives her 20 minutes of radio time or 40 minutes of flashlight. But here's the key thing I learned. You have to practice with it. Once a month, my mom cranks that radio for 5 minutes just to keep the motion familiar. Because if the first time you try to use it is during an emergency when your hands are cold and you're stressed, you're not going to have the patience or coordination to figure it out. Number 3. Propane camp stove with extra canisters. A simple propane camp stove and at least 6 extra propane canisters. Not a fancy multi-burner setup, not a complicated outdoor cooking system. Just a basic single-burner Coleman stove that takes those green 1-pound propane bottles. When you're over 60, hot food and hot drinks during a winter blackout aren't luxuries. They're medical necessities. A cup of hot soup raises your core body temperature. Hot tea or coffee provides psychological comfort during a stressful situation. And being able to heat up food means you can actually eat proper meals instead of surviving on cold canned goods, which a lot of seniors won't eat because it's unappetizing and hard on their digestive systems. My mom's 68. She takes blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, and a blood thinner. When the power went out and it got cold, she stopped eating much because everything was cold and she lost her appetite. When your body's already stressed from the cold, not eating makes everything worse. Your body needs calories to generate heat. If you're not eating, you're not producing body heat, and the downward spiral accelerates. A camp stove solves this. It takes about 30 seconds to set up. You screw on the propane canister, open the valve, light it with any lighter, and you've got a flame hot enough to boil water in 3 minutes. 1 propane canister will last about 2 hours of cooking time. 6 canisters means 12 hours of hot meals, which easily covers 3 to 5 days if you're just heating soup, making tea, warming up canned goods. The Coleman single-burner stove costs about $25. Each propane canister is about $4. So for $65 total, you've got everything you need to make hot food during a week-long blackout. Number 4. Easy open canned goods with pop tops. Canned foods with pull-tab lids. Not the kind that need a can opener, the kind with the metal ring on top that you just pull to open. And I'm talking about specific foods that seniors will actually eat cold if they have to. Here's what I learned about food storage for older adults. They need different things than younger people. My mom has arthritis in her hands. Opening a can with a manual can opener during the freeze was almost impossible for her. Her hands were cold, her joints were stiff, and the cheap can opener I'd gotten her just spun on the can without cutting. But the bigger issue is appetite. When you're cold and stressed and isolated, you don't feel like eating. And if the only option is cold beans straight from a can that you had to struggle to open, a lot of seniors just won't eat. They'll say they're not hungry, or they'll eat a couple bites and give up, and not eating when your body's already under stress is dangerous. The pop-top cans solve both problems. First, anyone can open them even with arthritis or weak hands. You just pull the tab. Second, they make eating feel less like survival mode and more like normal food, which psychologically matters. I stock my mom's pantry with specific items: Chef Boyardee ravioli with pop-tops. She likes it even cold. Progresso soups with pop-tops that she can heat on the camp stove or eat cold if needed. Campbell's chunky soups, Hormel chili, all with pull tabs. The key is getting foods that have some fat and protein in them. Seniors need calories to maintain body temperature. Plain vegetables or watery soups aren't enough. You need stews, chilies, meals with meat and beans that provide sustained energy. I keep 30 cans in her pantry. That's enough for 2 weeks if she's eating 2 cans a day. Total cost is about $60 to $70 at Walmart, and I rotate them every 6 months. She eats the old ones. I replace them with fresh ones. Number 5. Medication cooling pack with ice packs. An insulated medication cooler bag with reusable ice packs. This one's specific to a lot of seniors who take medications that need refrigeration. Insulin being the most common, but also certain heart medications, biologics, injectables. Lots of prescriptions require refrigeration to stay effective. When the power goes out in winter, people think about staying warm, not staying cool. But here's the reality for millions of seniors. They've got medications in the fridge that'll spoil without power. And in winter, your fridge might stay cool for a while, but if the power's out for 3 or 4 days, it's going to warm up eventually, especially if you're opening it to get food out. My mom doesn't take insulin, but my neighbor does. He's 72, diabetic, needs insulin twice a day. During the Texas freeze, his power was out for 4 days. By day 3, he was panicking because his insulin had been sitting in a warming fridge and he didn't know if it was still good. Insulin that gets too warm or too cold stops working properly. And if you're diabetic and your insulin stops working, you're in a medical emergency. The solution is a proper medication cooler. not a regular cooler that's big and bulky. A small insulated bag specifically designed for medications, with gel ice packs that you can freeze before the power goes out, and that'll keep medications at the right temperature for days. The ones made for diabetics are perfect for this. Frio makes insulin cooling wallets that work without electricity. You soak them in water, and the evaporative cooling keeps insulin at the right temperature for days. They cost about $25 to $40 depending on size. Number 6. Non-electric space blankets and sleeping bag. Emergency Mylar space blankets and a cold-rated sleeping bag. Not the cheap dollar store space blankets that tear if you breathe on them wrong. I'm talking about the thicker, reusable ones, and a sleeping bag rated for at least 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's the thing about staying warm during a winter blackout when you're older. Piling on regular blankets only does so much because you're losing heat through radiation and convection. Your body heat escapes into the air around you. Space blankets work differently. They reflect your body heat back at you. That's why they look like metallic foil, because they're actually reflecting infrared radiation. But the cheap ones are garbage. They tear easily, they're loud and crinkly, and they don't breathe, so you end up sweating and then getting colder. The good reusable space blankets, the kind that are fabric-backed, cost about $15 to $20 each. They're quieter, they last years, and they actually work. My mom sleeps with one over her regular blankets now during winter blackouts. It makes a noticeable difference in how warm she stays. We tested it one night when it got down to 40 degrees in her house during the freeze. With just her regular comforter, she was freezing. Added the space blanket over the top, and she said she actually got too warm and had to partially uncover herself. But the sleeping bag is the real game changer for seniors. Not for camping, for sleeping in your own bed when the heat's out. You get a sleeping bag rated for 20 degrees or colder, and you sleep inside it in your bed on top of your mattress with your regular pillows. This is way more effective than just adding more blankets. The reason is insulation on all sides. Blankets only insulate on top. Your back is pressed against the cold mattress, losing heat. A sleeping bag insulates underneath you too. It creates a warm envelope around your body that traps heat everywhere. Number 7. Battery-powered carbon monoxide detector. A battery-powered carbon monoxide detector, not one that plugs into the wall, because when the power's out, those are useless. A standalone unit that runs on batteries and screams at you if carbon monoxide levels get dangerous. This one's life or death for seniors, and here's why. During winter blackouts, people do desperate things to stay warm. They bring charcoal grills inside. They run generators in garages attached to the house. They light multiple candles in closed rooms. They use propane heaters without proper ventilation. And carbon monoxide builds up silently. Here's what makes this especially dangerous for older adults. Early symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning look like just feeling tired and confused, but when you're 70 years old and you've been cold and stressed for 2 days, you already feel tired and confused. You don't recognize the symptoms until it's too late. During the Texas freeze, several people died from carbon monoxide poisoning. They'd brought their grills inside to stay warm, or they were running a generator in an attached garage. The carbon monoxide built up. They got sleepy, and they never woke up. My mom's house has a plug-in carbon monoxide detector, but when the power went out, it was useless. I immediately bought her 2 battery-powered ones. Put one in the hallway near her bedroom, one near the kitchen where she'd be using the camp stove. Each one cost about $35. Number 8. Easy Grip LED flashlights with extra batteries. Large, easy grip LED flashlights, not small tactical flashlights, not headlamps. Big, lightweight LED flashlights that are easy to hold even with arthritis, and extra batteries stored with each flashlight. When you're a senior dealing with a winter blackout, darkness compounds every other problem. You can't find things. You trip over stuff. You can't read medication labels. You feel isolated and scared. Light is psychological as much as practical. But here's the problem with most flashlights and seniors. They're either too small and fiddly, or they're too heavy, or the switch is hard to operate. My mom has arthritis in her hands. Those little push-button switches on tactical flashlights are hard for her to use when her hands are cold and stiff. The solution is simple. Get big rubber body LED flashlights with large twist switches or big slide switches. The kind that are impossible to not be able to turn on. Eveready makes perfect ones for about $12 each. They're lightweight plastic with rubber grips. The switch is a big slide button on the side that you can operate even with gloves on. They use D batteries and they're bright enough to light up a whole room. I bought 4 of them. One for her nightstand, one for the kitchen, one for the bathroom, one that stays by the back door. Each flashlight has fresh batteries installed, and I keep a 4-pack of backup batteries rubber banded to each flashlight. That way she never has to search for batteries in the dark. Everything's right there together, but here's the key thing I learned. You have to use them before an emergency. Once a week, my mom picks up each flashlight and turns it on just to make sure it works, and she remembers how. Because muscle memory matters. In the dark, when you're stressed and cold, your hands need to know automatically how to turn that light on. The other critical thing is placement. Flashlights need to be in the exact same spot always. My mom's nightstand flashlight lives in the same spot every single night. If she wakes up and the power's out, she can reach for that exact spot in total darkness and find the flashlight immediately. Same with the kitchen one. Same spot always. Number 9. Pre-written emergency contact cards. Laminated cards with emergency contact information, medical information, and what to do in different scenarios. This sounds too simple to matter, but it's critical for seniors during high-stress situations. When you're over 60 and you're cold, stressed, scared, and isolated during a blackout, your brain doesn't work as well as normal. You forget phone numbers. You can't remember if you took your medication. You don't know who to call for help. And if you have a medical emergency, first responders need to know your medical history, your medications, your allergies. I made my mom 4 laminated cards. One goes in her wallet. One stays by her bed. One's on the fridge. One's in her emergency supply box. Each card has the same information in large print that's easy to read. My contact info and my brother's contact info. Our names, phone numbers, and the phrase emergency contacts, call if you can't reach me. Her doctor's name and office number, her pharmacy number. The local non-emergency police number, the electric company's outage line, her medical information, her medication list, her allergies, and her blood type. On the back of each card, I wrote simple instructions for common scenarios. If power is out for more than 4 hours, use a heating pad. Use a camp stove in the garage. Call emergency contact. If too cold, get in the sleeping bag. Use a space blanket. Call emergency contact. If there is a medical emergency, call 911. Give this card to paramedics. These cards cost about $2 each to laminate at Office Depot. But they're the difference between my mom being able to function during a crisis and her being completely overwhelmed. When she's stressed, she can just look at the card and know what to do. She doesn't have to remember. She doesn't have to make decisions. The card tells her. Number 10. Neighbor check-in system. A visual check-in system with neighbors. This isn't a product you buy. It's a system you set up before there's an emergency. And for seniors living alone, it's possibly the most important item on this entire list. Here's the reality. During a major winter blackout, emergency services are overwhelmed. Ambulances are delayed. Hospitals are full. If you're a senior living alone and something goes wrong, help might not come for hours or even days. Your best chance of survival is having neighbors who know to check on you and who will notice if something's wrong. After the Texas freeze, I set up a system with my mom's neighbors. It's simple. Every morning during normal times, she puts a specific decoration in her front window. It's a small flag that sits on her windowsill. If the flag is up, she's okay. If the flag isn't up by 10 a.m. or if it doesn't appear all day, something's wrong and the neighbors need to check on her. During a winter blackout, the system changes slightly. She moves the flag to a different window, the one facing the neighbor's house directly. That way they know to watch for it. If they don't see it by noon each day, they knock on her door. If she doesn't answer, they have a key and permission to enter and check on her. This system works because it requires no technology, no phones, no internet, no power. Just a visual signal that her neighbors can see from their house. And it works both ways. My mom watches for her neighbor's signal too. They're both in their late 60 seconds, both living alone, both looking out for each other. All right, let's recap what we've covered. 10 items that actually matter for seniors facing a winter blackout. And I want to emphasize something that should be obvious by now but needs to be said directly. This isn't the standard prepper list. You didn't hear me talk about weapons, about building fires, about hunting game or purifying stream water, because that's not the real world for most seniors. The real world is someone in their late 60 seconds or 70 seconds, probably with some health issues, probably on multiple medications, living alone in a regular house in a normal neighborhood. When the power goes out in winter for that person, survival isn't about fighting off hordes or living off the land. Survival is staying warm enough to avoid hypothermia. It's being able to eat hot food and stay nourished. It's keeping medications stable. It's having light so you don't fall and break a hip. It's staying in contact with people who can help if things go wrong. The 10 items I covered today solve those actual problems. Not theoretical problems. Not Hollywood disaster movie problems. The real problems that real seniors face during real winter blackouts. Stay safe, stay prepared, and look out for each other, because that's what gets us through the hard times.